The apartment door clicked open with a softness that didn't match the storm about to erupt. Nikita stepped inside, his fingers still gripping the handle of his keys, muscles tight from a day he couldn't even recall now. Something was off. Not wrong, not alarming, just off. It was too quiet, until it wasn't. Laughter filtered in from the kitchen, familiar voices warm and casual. Lina's light giggle, sharp like the clink of a glass, and then Artem's low, careless chuckle. He paused in the hallway just before the turn. His shoes were still on, his coat half off his shoulder. He was about to call out, but something in their tone held him back. Then it came. Artem's voice, muffled but clear. He's too dumb to ever figure it out. Nikita didn't breathe. Lina's voice, half laughing. Let him think we're just friends. He trusts you more than anyone, remember? Silence. No, not silence. His pulse pounding in his ears, the blood draining from his face, the soft hum of the fridge like background static in his mind. He didn't move, didn't cough, didn't gasp, just slowly, almost mechanically, slid his hand into the inner pocket of his jacket and pressed the button on the small black recorder he always carried. They didn't hear it. Of course they didn't. They didn't know he was standing 10 feet away, a wall between them and the collapse of everything they thought was hidden. The laughter resumed, the sound of a bottle uncorking, glasses clinking. Nikita took one silent step backward and closed the door, just enough for the lock to catch, without a sound. He backed away into his office, his quiet fortress, his place of stillness and thought. Inside, the room was dim, the blinds were pulled, the desk neat, the monitor asleep. He placed the recorder gently on the desk and pressed stop. His hand shook once, then steadied. He could have walked in. He could have screamed. He could have flipped the table and shattered everything in that kitchen. But he didn't. Instead, he whispered to himself, "Let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes." He sat down, put on his headphones, and pressed play. He listened to the recording 3 times that night. Not because he didn't believe what he heard, but because each time, a new detail cut deeper. The way Lina said, "let him think," as if trust was something to be bent and shaped at her whim. The lazy confidence in Artem's voice, that smug ease only someone certain of impunity could wear. Each word etched itself into Nikita's bones like frostbite. But rage, no. Rage was the easy road. He didn't want chaos. He wanted control. In the reflection of his monitor, his eyes looked different. Colder. Not hollow, just still. Like water just before it freezes. He opened a blank folder on his desktop and named it what he really wanted to scream. Brachjena, rather than wipe. Inside, he created subfolders, audio, screenshots, suspicion log, loose ends. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was casework now. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he rewound the past 6 months in his mind like surveillance footage. The weekend Lina suddenly needed a creative recharge at her friend's dacha. The time Artem just happened to be in their neighborhood and popped by with sushi, the little looks, the new inside jokes. The times Lina's lipstick stayed flawless late into the night. No arguments, no suspicions, just distance. She'd been clever, not careless, but not invincible. The next morning over coffee, Lina was sunshine in silk. "You didn't sleep well again, huh?" she asked, brushing a kiss against his temple. Her breath smelled like mint tea and something synthetic. She wore his favorite robe, the one he bought her in Prague, soft blue embroidered with cranes. He met her eyes. Not too long. Just enough. Had some edits to finish for the podcast, he said, voice steady. Lina smiled, satisfied with that. She had no idea the recorder was already back in his pocket, already primed. Later that week, he invited Artem for a beer, just the two of them. Said he needed help moving the old speaker system from the balcony. Nothing suspicious. They laughed like old times. Or almost. "Man, you've always been the quiet one," Artem said mid-swig. "You'd make a great spy." Nikita chuckled, not missing the irony. Quiet's underrated. While Artem admired the vintage amp setup, Nikita swiped his friend's phone for a second. Just long enough to spot a message preview from L. "He didn't ask about last night, told you." He didn't react. He didn't need to. Instead, he smiled and handed back the phone as if nothing had happened, his voice calm. "You ever lie to someone who trusts you?" Artem blinked, caught off guard. "What? Nah, man, you good?" "Yeah," Nikita said softly. "Just writing a new script for the next episode. Themes, betrayal." Artem laughed, unsure whether it was a joke. That night, Nikita added a new file to the folder. /screenshots/Artem_message_preview. Jeep. He was building a case, not for the courts, but for clarity, for dignity, for closure on his terms. Still, there were moments. The mask slipped. Like when Lena fell asleep on the couch and her phone lit up with a message from Artem, "Dreaming of you." Nikita stared at the words for a long time. Then he walked into his office, hit record, and whispered into the mic. People think silence means weakness, but silence is a scalpel. It cuts cleaner than rage. And as he sat there, the recorder humming beside him, a plan began to form. Not loud, not violent, but surgical. Nikita began speaking more than usual. Not much, just enough to draw them out. A question here, a comment there. He started leaving little conversational hooks in the air like bait. The goal wasn't to catch them in a lie, it was to let them lie willingly. Repeatedly. At dinner one evening, he leaned back in his chair and sipped wine casually. "You know," he said, eyes fixed on the TV, "I can't remember where I left that old flash drive. The black one. Had some recordings on it." Lena barely looked up from her phone. "The one you always kept in the studio drawer?" He turned slowly to her. She blinked. "I mean," she corrected herself quickly, "I just assumed. That's where you usually keep all that stuff, right?" "Yeah," Nikita said, nodding slowly. "Usually." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That same night, he moved the Bradajena folder to an encrypted external drive and began drafting a document labeled simply Chronology, a timeline of lies. The who, when, where, screenshots, voice notes, every detail. He wasn't collecting evidence to prove them guilty. He was giving them time to prove themselves irreparably guilty. A week later, he arranged the first move of his silent endgame, a nostalgia dinner, something he hadn't done in years. "I was thinking," he told Lena one morning, "we haven't had Artem over for dinner in forever. Remember those old university nights? 3 of us at the tiny table laughing about who'd end up bald first?" Lena laughed too easily. "God, yes, that was fun. Let's do it. This Friday, just us." She agreed too quickly. Guilt does that. It speeds up decisions, removes caution. When Nikita called Artem to invite him, there was a beat of silence before his friend replied, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great, like old times." Nikita smiled into the phone. Exactly. That week, he played his part to perfection. He complimented Lena's cooking, sent Artem a link to a playlist from their college days. For the vibe, he'd said. All the while, the recorder in his office quietly accumulated pieces of their conversations, unimportant on the surface, but damning in retrospect. He left his laptop open one evening, displaying the home screen with a file named, "He's Not That Dumb, 3 Dead Center." Lena passed by, her eyes flicked to the screen, then away. She said nothing. Neither did he. Friday arrived with the kind of false calm that coats a battlefield just before the first shot. Nikita dressed simply. Gray shirt, no cologne, no theatrics. He set the table himself, wine glasses, candles, napkins folded into tight squares, like control made visible. Lena wore red lipstick and a silk blouse he hadn't seen in months. Artem brought a bottle of wine and that signature crooked smile, but his eyes darted more than usual. His laughs landed a second too late. They ate, drank, laughed about shared memories. Nikita brought up the past with surgical precision. "Remember that trip to Sochi?" he asked. "When we got so drunk you tried to convince the bartender you were in the cage." Artem laughed. "You're never going to let that go, are you?" "I remember everything," Nikita replied softly. A subtle shift, a beat of silence, a glance exchanged between Lena and Artem that they tried to make look casual. Nikita refilled their glasses. When the mood was lightest, when the wine had settled just enough to blur the edges of caution, he excused himself. "Just need a minute," he said, heading to his office. He returned with a small Bluetooth speaker, set it down, pressed play. At first, only soft static. Then, voices, familiar, intimate, unaware they were being heard. Artem's voice. "He's too dumb to ever figure it out." Lena's laugh. "Let him think we're just friends." The room went silent. The wine in Lena's hand trembled. Artem's eyes widened, but he didn't. Nikita stood, calm, still, not angry, just done. He looked at them both. "See," he said, "you thought I was blind. I was just patient." He reached into his pocket and placed a flash drive on the table. Then a printed transcript. Then his wedding ring. "For the record," he added, "this wasn't revenge. This was clarity. You lied, I listened. That's all." He turned to leave. Behind him, Lena's voice cracked. "Wait." He paused at the door. "No," he said without turning. "Now you get to talk. To each other. Like you always wanted." And with that, he walked out. The dinner was over. The masks were off. Nikita left the apartment without slamming the door. He didn't take much, just a backpack, his external drive, a change of clothes, and the same pocket recorder that had turned whispers into wreckage. For 2 days, he disappeared. No calls, no posts, no trace. Lena messaged once. Please come home. We need to talk. He didn't reply. Artem didn't message at all. Nikita wasn't hiding. He was observing. From a guest room at his parents' house, where he now edited freelance podcast episodes, he reviewed the last bits of data, their phone records, chat timestamps, the voicemails Lena had left for Artem during the times she claimed to be out with friends. Patterns emerged. Lies were never random. They had architecture. But this wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about finishing the narrative. So on Sunday morning, he sent a message to both of them. Tuesday 19, Cafe Lavka, 1 hour. Don't be late. Lena replied with 3 dots that never turned into words. Artem simply responded. Okay. Cafe Lavka was quiet that evening. Intimate but public. The kind of place where secrets accidentally slipped out over cappuccinos, and the air always smelled faintly of clove and citrus. Nikita arrived 10 minutes early, took the booth near the window. He wore black, neutral, invisible. He ordered tea. Lena arrived first, nervous energy, wrapped in perfume and lip gloss. She wore something conservative, meant to seem sincere. Her hands fidgeted in her lap. Her eyes scanned his face for softness, but found only reflection. Thanks for coming, she said carefully. He gave her a polite nod. Not warm, not hostile, just present. Artem arrived next, 15 seconds before the clock struck 7. Hoodie, jeans, the same old sneakers, like this was just another casual meetup, but his shoulders were stiff, his jaw tight. No one spoke at first. Nikita let the silence stretch. When the tension began to ache in their bones, he finally said, "So, what did you want to tell me?" Lena blinked. I hoped you called this meeting to talk. I did, Nikita said, but not to listen. You've already said everything. I just recorded it. Artem exhaled, leaning forward. Look, man, Nikita held up a hand. Let me finish. He reached into his backpack and pulled out 3 things, a printed folder, a photo envelope, and a small blue velvet box. He placed them gently on the table. This, he said, tapping the folder, is a record of your messages, timestamps, locations, matches perfectly with the audio. He turned to Lena. These, he added, sliding over the photos, are from the nights you said you were with Marina. Recognize the reflection in that car window? Lena didn't speak. And this, he placed the ring box between them, is the symbol I wore because I thought I was building something real. Now I return it to its rightful state, closed. Neither of them reached for it. Nikita leaned back. His voice never rose. His eyes never flickered. You didn't just lie to me. You made a choice, repeatedly. This wasn't a mistake. This was a habit. And habits tell the truth more than words ever can. Lena finally spoke, her voice trembling. You don't understand, Nikita. I didn't plan for this to happen. I was lost. I thought you stopped caring. He tilted his head. I didn't stop. I just became quiet, and you mistook that for absence. Artem tried again. You shut us out, man. You were always in your head, always working. I trusted you, Nikita interrupted. That was my mistake. I gave you space, and you built a tunnel under my feet. He fell silent again. Nikita sipped his tea. I didn't call this meeting for closure or for drama. I called it because I wanted you both to understand something very simple. He leaned forward now, elbows on the table. You didn't break me, you broke my illusion, and for that I'm grateful. They both stared, because now I see you clearly. He stood up, slowly, smoothly. I'm not angry anymore, he added. That would mean I still care. He turned to Lena. You wanted to feel powerful? You got it. You burned down a man who loved you. Then to Artem. You wanted what I had, now you can have the ashes. He reached into his coat, pulled out a flash drive, and placed it on the table. The full recordings, keep them. Maybe they'll help you sleep. Then he walked away. No dramatic exit, no shouting, just footsteps fading over tile and a door chime that felt like a period. That night, Nikita didn't sleep in the guest room. He drove 3 hours north to a small town where a radio station had offered him a part-time editing job. Quiet, scenic, nothing flashy, just peace. The next morning, he sat in a new studio, plugged in his mic, and recorded. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave without explaining a thing, because silence isn't weakness, it's knowing they don't deserve your words anymore. He pressed save, leaned back, and exhaled. The storm was over. Now came the stillness. The radio station was modest. 3 rooms, faded walls, coffee that tasted like yesterday, but to Nikita, it was a cathedral. He arrived early every day. The quiet hum of the building became his new rhythm. No voices behind doors, no hidden whispers in kitchens, just music, interviews, and silence. Beautiful, chosen silence. He didn't tell anyone where he'd gone. He didn't need to. The people who mattered had never betrayed him. The ones who had, their access expired the moment he walked out of that cafe. His voice became the voice of the late-night program, soft, deliberate, steady. He didn't chase attention, he offered truth. The audience grew. Messages trickled in from listeners. Your words helped me sleep. You sound like someone who's been through something and survived. He never replied, not because he didn't care, because he did. But healing, for him, wasn't about reliving the past. It was about building something stronger on the other side. One evening, the station manager passed him a note. There's a conference in Sochi next month. Audio storytelling. You should apply. They'd be lucky to have your voice. Nikita folded the note and tucked it into his wallet, behind an old photo of himself and his father on a fishing trip. A reminder. Some bonds are unbreakable. Others never really existed. In his apartment above the station, life was simple. A mattress on the floor, 2 mugs, a desk with a microphone. He liked it that way. Nothing unnecessary, everything chosen. Sometimes he opened the external drive marked Brat Igena, not to relive the betrayal, but to remind himself what he survived. Then he would close it, unmoved, not out of numbness, but peace. One night, while recording an episode about starting over, he paused. His finger hovered over the record button, then moved to a blank notepad instead. He wrote, "You were never mine. You were just part of the story I told myself about the future. And now I tell better stories." He never published that one. Some words were meant only for him. Months passed. One spring afternoon, while walking through the market near the station, he saw someone who looked like Lena. Same hair, same way of carrying a bag, like it was an extension of herself. His chest tightened for a second. Then he kept walking, not because he was avoiding her, because it didn't matter anymore. There was no emotion left to stir, just a familiar silhouette in a city that no longer held ghosts. The final piece fell into place when he received a letter in the mail. No return address, neat handwriting. Inside, "I've started therapy. I'm sorry, you didn't deserve it. Neither did he. No name. But he knew the writer." He folded the letter carefully, slid it into a drawer beside the recorder, and whispered, "Too late." The last scene of the story played out not in confrontation, but in creation. Nikita stood before a live mic at the Sochi conference. Dozens of aspiring storytellers stared at him. He spoke without notes. People think pain makes us interesting. It doesn't. What we do after the pain, that's the story, the real story. So if you're listening and you've been betrayed, lied to, abandoned, remember this. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. Sometimes all you need to do is press record. He paused, smiled, and then you move forward, quietly, unapologetically, free. The applause came, slow at first, then built. But Nikita didn't wait for the end. He stepped down, walked out into the evening sun, a man with no need to look back. Because some victories don't need an audience, only silence.